The mining station on Kepler 442b was hell. Admiral Kang Wubin knew this as he watched another human worker collapse from exhaustion. The alien guards didn't care. They never did. The Valtheon Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, and humans were just another species to exploit. Wubin remembered when Earth still existed as a free world. That was 50 years ago. He had been a young commander then, full of hope and pride in the Earth Defense Force. Now he was old, scarred, and angry. But he was also careful. The aliens thought all the human military leaders were dead. They were wrong. The Valtheon guards stood 12 feet tall, with gray skin like stone and eyes that glowed red in the dark. They carried energy weapons that could cut a human in half. They wore armor that could stop any weapon humans had used 50 years ago. They thought they were invincible. "Keep working," one of the guards said, in broken human language. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "Emperor wants more crystal today." Wubin bent over his mining tools and pretended to work harder. He had learned to play the part of a broken slave. It kept him alive. It let him watch. It let him plan. The crystals they mined powered Valtheon warships. Every day humans dug deeper into the planet's crust to find more. The work was dangerous. Cave-ins happened often. Radiation poisoning was common. The aliens didn't care if humans died. There were always more humans on other worlds, but Wubin cared. He remembered every face. He remembered every name. Somewhere in the galaxy, Dr. Park Mi-yeon was still alive. He was sure of it. She had been Earth's best scientist. If anyone could find a way to fight back, it would be her. The work shift ended when the planet's two suns set. The guards herded the human workers back to their sleeping quarters. The building was made of rough metal sheets that barely kept out the cold. Hundreds of humans lived in spaces meant for dozens. Wubin found his sleeping spot in a corner. He waited until the guards left. Then he pulled out a small device hidden in his boot. It looked like a broken piece of mining equipment. It was actually a communication device he had built from scraps. "This is Eagle," he whispered into the device. Eagle was his code name. He had others across the galaxy. "Anyone listening?" Static filled his ear for long minutes, then a voice came through, weak and distant. "Eagle, this is Rabbit, I hear you." The voice belonged to Captain Yoon Dae-ho, stationed on a factory world 3 systems away. "Status report," Wubin said. "Same. As always. Work, sleep, survive. But I have news. A new transport arrived yesterday. It brought humans from the Centauri colonies. One of them says he worked with Park before the war." Wubin's heart jumped. Is he sure? He described her perfectly. Says she was working on something big when the aliens attacked. Something about energy shields. Energy shields. Wubin remembered the projects Earth scientists had worked on before the invasion. Most had been theoretical. The Valtheon attack had come too fast for anything to be finished. Where is this man now? Wubin asked. "Factory 7, Level 3. His name is Kim Summon. He's an engineer." Wubin memorized the information. "I'll try to make contact. Keep listening for more news." "Will do." Rabbit out. Wubin hid the device again and lay down on his thin sleeping mat. Around him, hundreds of other humans tried to find rest after another day of forced labor. Some cried quietly. Some stared at the ceiling with empty eyes. Some whispered prayers to gods who seemed to have forgotten them. But not Wubin. He planned. The next morning brought the same routine. Wake before dawn. Eat thin soup that barely kept them alive. March to the mines under the watch of Valtheon guards. Work until exhaustion, return to sleep, repeat. But today was different. Today Wubin paid attention to the transport schedules posted on the walls. The aliens were efficient in their cruelty. They moved human workers between worlds based on need. A transport to the factory worlds would leave in 3 days. Wubin began to prepare. He had spent years building a network of contacts across the galaxy. Other humans who pretended to be broken but still fought in small ways. They passed information. They sabotaged equipment when they could do it safely. They kept hope alive. More importantly, they remembered who they used to be. That night, Wubin contacted another cell. This one was led by Colonel Choi Minho, who worked in the Imperial Communications Center on a border world. Minho had access to shipping records and troop movements. "I need to get to the factory worlds," Wubin told him. "Can you arrange it?" "Maybe," Minho replied. "But it's dangerous. They'll scan you when you arrive. If they find anything suspicious, I know the risks." Wubin had taken bigger risks than this. "I need to find an engineer named Kim So-min. Give me 2 days. I'll see what I can do." While he waited, Wubin gathered information about the factory worlds. They produced weapons, ships, and equipment for the Valtheon Empire. Security was tighter than on mining worlds, but that also meant more humans worked there. Engineers, technicians, workers who had specialized skills the aliens needed. If Dr. Park Mi-yeon was still alive, she would be on a world like that. The transport arrived on schedule. It was a massive ship, built by alien hands for alien purposes. The cargo holds had been modified to carry humans like livestock. Wubin joined the line of workers selected for transfer. He kept his head down and his expression empty. The Valtheon, guard-checking documents, barely looked at him. To the aliens, humans all looked the same. That was one of their weaknesses. They couldn't tell the difference between a broken slave and a military commander planning their destruction. The journey took 4 days. Wubin spent the time listening to conversations around him. He learned about conditions on different worlds. He identified potential recruits for his network. He memorized every detail that might be useful later. When they reached the factory world, Wubin saw something that made his heart race. In orbit around the planet were dozens of Valtheon warships. These weren't patrol boats or transport vessels. These were battleships, each one capable of destroying a planet. But they were old designs. Wubin had studied Valtheon technology during the war. These ships used the same weapons and defenses they had used for centuries. The aliens were powerful, but they didn't innovate. They didn't adapt. They relied on overwhelming force and superior numbers. That gave him hope. The processing center on the factory world was more sophisticated than the mining station. Humans were scanned, tested, and assigned jobs based on their skills. Wubin had prepared for this. His false identity showed him as a low-level technician with just enough knowledge to be useful, but not enough to be dangerous. He was assigned to maintenance duty in Factory 7. Perfect. Kim So-min was easy to find. He worked on the production line, assembling components for Valtheon computers. He was younger than Wubin had expected, maybe 30 years old. He had the focused look of someone who solved problems for a living. Wubin approached him during the meal break. He sat down at Kim's table without invitation. "You worked with Dr. Park Mi-yeon," Wubin said quietly. It wasn't a question. Kim's eyes went wide. He looked around nervously. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Centauri Research Station. Project Shield Wall. You were her assistant on the energy absorption experiments." Kim's face went pale. "Who are you?" "Someone who wants to find her. Someone who thinks she might still be working on something important." "She's dead. They're all dead. The whole research team died when the station was destroyed." Wubin leaned forward. "Are you sure? Did you see her body?" Kim was quiet for a long moment. Around them, other humans ate their meals and talked in whispers. The factory was too loud for the guards to hear individual conversations, but everyone stayed careful anyway. "No," Kim finally said. "I didn't see her body. But the aliens destroyed everything. The research, the prototypes, all of it." "What if they didn't? What if she escaped with the data?" "Impossible. Where would she go? There's nowhere to hide from the Empire." Wubin smiled for the first time in months. "You'd be surprised." Over the following days, Wubin learned Kim's story. He had been one of Dr. Park's best students, specializing in energy systems and quantum mechanics. When the Valtheon Empire attacked, he had been on Centauri Prime working on civilian projects. The military research was classified above his level, but he knew enough. He knew about Dr. Park's theories on energy absorption and redirection. He knew about the experimental materials they had been developing. Most importantly, he knew her habits and her way of thinking. She always had backup plans, Kim told Wubin one evening. Even backup plans for her backup plans. She said the universe was too unpredictable to rely on single solutions. Where would she go if she needed to hide? Kim thought about it. Somewhere with resources but no imperial presence. Maybe an asteroid field with heavy metals. She'd need rare elements. For her work, Wubin already had ideas about that. His network had contacts throughout the galaxy. Some worked on remote stations that the Empire barely monitored. Others had access to shipping records and exploration data. But first, he needed to confirm that Dr. Park was alive. That confirmation came from an unexpected source. Commander Lee Jinwoo had been a ship captain during the war. Now he worked as a cargo handler on a space station in the Outer Rim. When Wubin contacted him, Lee had surprising news. "I've been tracking unusual energy signatures," Lee said over their encrypted channel. "Someone is using technology I don't." Dr. Park Mi-yeon had been dead for 3 years. At least that's what the galaxy believed. She let them think that. Being dead was the best protection she had found against the Valtheon Empire. The asteroid research station was hidden deep in the belt, disguised as a mining operation that had been abandoned decades ago. From the outside, it looked like twisted metal and broken equipment floating in space. Inside, it was humanity's last hope. "The quantum field is stable," reported engineer Kim So-min, who had arrived 2 months ago with Admiral Kang Wubin. "Energy absorption is at 97% efficiency." Park nodded and made notes on her tablet. Around her, 30 of Earth's best scientists and engineers worked at stations that hummed with power. They had been gathering here for 2 years, brought by Wubin's network one by one. Each arrival was dangerous. Each new person risked exposing their location to the Empire, but they needed every mind they could get. The project was too big for a small team. "Show me the redirection test," Park said. Kim activated the main display. A holographic image showed their prototype shield absorbing energy from a simulated Valtheon plasma weapon. The shield didn't just block the energy. It captured it, stored it, and prepared to send it back with twice the original power. "The aliens have used the same weapon designs for centuries," Kim explained. "Their plasma cannons are powerful, but they're predictable. We can tune our shields to their exact frequencies." Park smiled. This was the breakthrough she had dreamed of during the dark years after Earth's fall. The Valtheon Empire ruled through superior firepower. Their ships carried weapons that could destroy planets, but those weapons were energy-based, and energy could be redirected. "What's our production timeline?" she asked. Commander Lee Jinwoo looked up from his workstation. He had arrived 6 months ago with detailed intelligence about Valtheon ship movements and patrol schedules. His experience as a naval officer was essential for the next phase of their plan. "The main shield generators will be ready in 3 weeks," Lee said. "The hull sections are taking longer. We need materials that can withstand the stress of redirected energy." "Use the crystalline composites from the mining worlds," Park suggested. "They're designed to handle high energy loads." Already working on it, Captain Yoon Dae-ho is coordinating shipments through the smuggling networks, but it's slow work. We can't risk attracting attention. Park understood the balance they had to maintain. Too much activity would bring Imperial scouts. Too little progress meant humanity would remain enslaved forever. They walked a thin line between hope and discovery. She moved to the central workstation, where the real breakthrough waited. The prototype battleship Indomitable Dawn was still under construction in the asteroid's hidden shipyard, but its main weapon was already complete. The quantum resonance cannon didn't fire projectiles or energy, beams like conventional weapons. Instead, it created tears in space-time itself. The tears lasted only microseconds, but they were enough to bypass any known shield technology. The Valtheon Empire had never seen anything like it. "Have you run the final simulations?" Park asked. Dr. Lim Gaon, her lead physicist. "Completed this morning," Lim replied. "The space-time distortion is controllable within acceptable parameters. We can target specific areas of enemy ships without causing system-wide damage to local space." That was important. A weapon that could destroy entire star systems would make them no better than the empire they fought. This was about liberation, not genocide. Specialist Nam Jisoo approached from the communication station. She monitored all Imperial channels and maintained contact with resistance cells across the galaxy. Her work was vital for coordinating their eventual strike. Admiral Wubin is requesting an update, Nam reported. His people are asking when they can start active operations. Park considered this. Wubin's network had grown larger than anyone expected. Humans throughout the Empire were learning that organized resistance was possible. They wanted to fight, but fighting too early would doom them all. Tell him 2 more months, Park decided. We need the ship completed before we reveal ourselves. Once we attack, there's no going back. The Empire will hunt us with everything they have. Understood. Also, we've intercepted communications about increased Imperial activity near the factory worlds. They're moving more battleships into those sectors. That was concerning. The factory worlds held millions of human workers. If the Empire suspected resistance activity, they might decide those workers were too dangerous to keep alive. Get me a full analysis of the ship movements, Park ordered. I want to know if this is routine patrol rotation or something more serious. While her team worked, Park walked to the observation deck. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, she could see the asteroid field stretching into darkness. Somewhere out there, Valtheon ships patrolled the borders of their empire. They had no idea that their greatest threat was being built right under their noses. The indomitable Dawn was taking shape in the hidden construction bay. She was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Sleek hull lines that could cut through space at incredible speed, armor that could absorb and redirect energy attacks, weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. But more than that, she represented something the galaxy had forgotten was possible. Successful resistance against the Valtheon Empire, proof that the aliens were not invincible, hope for billions of enslaved beings across thousands of worlds. Captain Han Yunji joined Park at the observation window. She would command the fighter escort that would accompany the battleship on its first mission. Her pilots were volunteers from Wubin's network, humans who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. The fighters are ready, Han reported. We've integrated the same shield technology on a smaller scale. We won't have the firepower of the main ship, but we can protect ourselves and provide tactical support. How many pilots do we have? 24 confirmed, all with military experience from before the war. They're older than I'd like, but they know how to fight. Park nodded. Age wasn't necessarily a disadvantage. These pilots had seen what the galaxy was like before the Empire conquered everything. They remembered freedom. They had reasons to fight beyond simple survival. What about weapons? Modified plasma cannons with our energy redirection technology. They won't punch through Imperial battleship armor, but they'll handle fighters and escort ships. Our real advantage will be tactics. Imperial pilots are used to overwhelming their enemies with superior numbers and firepower. They don't know how to fight opponents who think differently. That was humanity's secret weapon. The Valtheon Empire had conquered hundreds of species, but they had done it the same way every time. Massive fleets, devastating firepower, demands for surrender. Species that couldn't match their technology were enslaved. Those that resisted were destroyed. But humans were different. They adapted. They innovated. They found ways to turn weakness into strength. The Empire had never faced enemies like that. Engineer O'Taijan approached with a tablet full of data. He had been analyzing captured Imperial technology, looking for weaknesses they could exploit. I've completed the analysis of their communication systems, he reported. The good news is that their encryption is old and predictable. We can intercept and decode most of their military traffic. The bad news is that their ships are designed with multiple redundant systems. Destroying one won't stop them. What about their command structure? Park asked. Very hierarchical. Orders flow down from sector commanders to individual ships, but there's no real initiative at the lower levels. If we can disrupt their command network, their individual ships won't know how to respond. Park filed that information away. It would be useful when they planned their first strike. The goal wasn't just to win a single battle. They needed to demonstrate that the Empire could be defeated. That would inspire others to resist. Dr. Baek Ji-won called out from across the laboratory. She had been working on the manufacturing systems that would allow them to build more ships after their first success. The automated production lines are ready, Beck announced. Once we prove our technology works, we can start building a fleet, not quickly, but steadily. How many ships could we produce? Park asked. Depends on resource availability. With full access to mining operations, maybe one battleship every 6 months. More if we focus on smaller vessels. That wasn't fast enough to challenge the entire empire directly. But it might be enough to create a symbol of resistance. Other species would see that the Valtheon Empire could be fought. Some of them might find the courage to join the rebellion. Park returned to her workstation and activated the secure communication system. Admiral Wubin needed to know about their progress. More importantly, he needed to prepare his people for what was coming. "This is Swan," she said, using her code name. "Are you receiving?" "Swan, this is Eagle. Good to hear your voice. Status report? Project is on schedule. Main asset will be ready for deployment in 8 weeks. Secondary assets are prepared for coordinated operations." There was a pause. Park could imagine Wubin processing this information, thinking about what it meant for the thousands of humans under his command. "Understood. My people are ready. We've been preparing for this day for 50 years. Remember, once we begin active operations, the Empire will respond with extreme." The indomitable Dawn dropped out of hyperspace like a ghost returning from the dead. Commander Lee Jinwoo watched the main display as their target came into view. Supply Station Nexus 7 hung in space like a metal spider, its arms reaching out to connect with dozens of cargo ships and transport vessels. "All systems green," reported engineer Kim Soman from his station. "Quantum shields are operating at full efficiency. Main weapon is charged and ready." Lee nodded. Around him, 24 humans operated the most advanced warship ever built by their species. They were all veterans of the old war, soldiers who had been presumed dead for 50 years. Today, they would announce to the galaxy that rumors of humanity's death had been greatly exaggerated. "Captain Han, are your fighters in position?" Captain Han Yunji's voice came through the communications system from her fighter cockpit. "Confirmed. All 24 fighters are ready. We're maintaining radio silence as ordered." The plan was simple in concept, complex in execution. They would attack the supply station with overwhelming force, destroy it completely, and escape before Imperial reinforcements could arrive. But more importantly, they would do it in a way that left no doubt about who was responsible. "Specialist Nam, are you picking up any Imperial communications?" Specialist Nam Jisoo monitored the enemy radio channels from her position at the communications console. "Standard traffic only. 3 patrol ships on routine patrol, cargo vessels requesting docking clearance, station operations coordinating supply transfers. No indication they've detected us." That was expected. The indomitable Dawn used stealth technology that made her invisible to conventional sensors. The Valtheon Empire relied on energy signature detection, but human quantum shielding made that impossible. They were a blind spot in the aliens' perfect surveillance network. "Commander," called Dr. Lim Gaon from the weapons console, "we're detecting 17 Valtheon ships in the area, 3 military patrol vessels. The rest are cargo and transport. Do you want us to disable the civilian ships or destroy everything?" Lee had thought about this question many times during the journey to their target. The cargo ships carried supplies that kept the Imperial war machine running, but they also carried crews who might include enslaved humans and other species. This wasn't about revenge, it was about liberation. Target military vessels first, he decided. Disable civilian ships if they don't surrender immediately. We're not here to commit genocide. Understood. Lee took a deep breath and activated the ship-wide communication system. Throughout the indomitable Dawn, human voices would hear his words. In the fighter cockpits, Captain Han's pilots would listen. In resistance cells across the galaxy, Admiral Kang Wubin's network would eventually learn what happened here. "This is Commander Lee Jinwoo of the Terran Battleship Indomitable Dawn. Today we return to the war that began 50 years ago. Today we show the galaxy that humanity is not broken. Today we begin the liberation of every world enslaved by the Valtheon Empire. All stations, Prepare for combat. The first shot of humanity's return to war came from the main weapon. Dr. Park Mi-yoon's quantum resonance cannon tore a hole in space-time itself, reaching across the void to touch the largest Imperial patrol ship. The weapon didn't create an explosion. It simply made part of the alien vessel stop existing. The patrol ship split in half and began spinning away into space, its crew dead before they understood what had happened to them. Direct hit, reported Dr. Lim. Enemy vessel destroyed. No debris larger than 10 meters. Alarms began sounding throughout the supply station. The remaining Imperial ships scrambled to respond, but they had never seen anything like this. Their sensors couldn't detect the human ship. Their weapons couldn't lock onto a target they couldn't see. Lee watched as panic spread through the enemy formation. Captain Han, your fighters are cleared to engage. Hit the patrol ships hard and fast. 24 human fighters dropped their stealth systems and appeared around the Imperial vessels like hunting wolves. They moved in patterns that the aliens had never seen before, using three-dimensional tactics that exploited the rigid thinking of Valtheon military doctrine. The Imperial pilots tried to respond with standard formations. They had overwhelming firepower and superior numbers if they could bring civilian ships into the fight. But they couldn't adapt fast enough to match human creativity. Captain Han's voice crackled through the communications system as her fighters engaged. This is Falcon Squadron. We have multiple targets. Engaging now. The space around Supply Station Nexus 7 erupted in flashes of energy and plasma. But this battle was different from anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Every time an Imperial ship fired at a human fighter, the shot was absorbed by quantum shielding and redirected back with doubled power. The aliens found themselves fighting their own weapons. Plasma cannons designed to destroy enemy fighters were turned against the ships that fired them. Energy beams meant to overwhelm human defenses became the instruments of Imperial destruction. Enemy patrol ship 2 is breaking off, reported Kim So-man. They're trying to escape. Don't let them, Lee ordered. If word gets out before we're ready, every Imperial fleet in the sector will hunt us. The indomitable Dawn moved like a predator stalking wounded prey. Her engines pushed her through space faster than any Valtheon ship could match. The quantum resonance cannon spoke again, and the fleeing patrol ship vanished in another controlled collapse of local spacetime. All military targets neutralized, announced Captain Han. Civilian ships are requesting permission to surrender. Lee switched to the general communication frequency that all ships in the area could hear. When he spoke, his words carried across space to every human, alien, and artificial intelligence within range of the supply station. This is Commander Lee Jinwoo of the Terran Battleship Indomitable Dawn. To all civilian vessels, you have 30 seconds to shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Comply immediately, and you will not be harmed. Resist, and you will be destroyed. The response was immediate. Cargo ships and transport vessels began powering down their systems. Their crews had just watched 3 Imperial patrol ships disappear, as if they had never existed. They had seen human fighters move through space like nothing in their experience. They wanted no part of this fight. Sir, called Specialist Nam, I'm detecting emergency communications from the supply station. They're trying to contact Imperial High Command. Jam all communications, Lee ordered. I want complete radio silence from this system until we're finished here. Nam's fingers moved across her console, activating systems that filled the electromagnetic spectrum with carefully designed interference. The supply station's desperate calls for help dissolved into static. Lee turned his attention to the main target. Supply Station Nexus 7 was more than just a logistics hub. It was a symbol of Imperial power. A demonstration that the Valtheon Empire could build anything they wanted anywhere they wanted. Destroying it would send a message that reached every corner of the galaxy. Dr. Lim, prepare the main weapon for sustained fire. I want that station reduced to component atoms. Charging now. We'll need approximately 2 minutes for full power. 2 minutes. Lee used the time to coordinate with Captain Han's fighters. They were boarding the civilian ships looking for enslaved humans and other species who might want to join the resistance. Every person they rescued was another victory against the Empire. Commander, Han reported, We've found 63 humans aboard the cargo vessels. Most are technical specialists being transported between work sites. They want to come with us. That was expected. Word of humanity's return to war would spread through the slave populations faster than Imperial communications could carry it. Every human in the galaxy would hear that their people were fighting back. How much space do we have? The Dawn can handle them easily. But sir, there's something else. We found 3 other species among the prisoners. They're asking to join us too. Lee felt a moment of satisfaction. This was what Dr. Park had hoped for. Humanity's rebellion would inspire others to resist. The Empire ruled through fear, but courage was contagious. Bring them all aboard. Anyone who wants to fight against the Empire is welcome. The quantum resonance cannon finished charging. Lee gave the order and Supply Station Nexus 7 began to die. Section by section, the massive structure collapsed into controlled space-time distortions. The aliens who had built it watched their work disappear as if it had been made of smoke and dreams. But Lee wasn't finished. The supply station had been the easy target. Now came the hard part. Open a channel to all Imperial frequency, he ordered. I want everyone in this sector to hear this. Specialist Nam nodded and activated the broadband transmitter. Lee's words would reach every Imperial ship, base, and outpost within 50 light years. They would carry to worlds where humans labored in slavery. They would echo through the halls of power on distant Nexus Prime. This is Commander Lee Jinwoo of the Terran Battleship Indomitable Dawn. I am speaking to the Valtheon Empire and all who serve it. For 50 years you have told the galaxy that humanity was defeated. You have used our people as slaves and claimed we accepted our fate. You were wrong. He paused, letting the words sink in across space. On 1,000 worlds, humans would hear this message and remember what freedom meant. On Imperial, Emperor Vorthak had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. In all that time, no one had ever dared to challenge him directly. The destruction of Supply Station Nexus 7 changed everything. The Emperor stood in his war room on Nexus Prime, surrounded by holographic displays showing the movement of Imperial fleets. Each dot of light represented a battleship capable of destroying planets. He had thousands of them. But for the first time in millennia, he wondered if that would be enough. Show me the tactical analysis again, he commanded. Admiral Thexor, his most experienced military commander, activated the main display. The old warrior had led the original conquest of Earth 50 years ago. He understood human capabilities better than anyone else in the Empire. The ship that attacked Nexus 7 demonstrates technology we have never encountered, Thexor reported. Our energy weapons were completely ineffective. In fact, they seemed to make the human ship stronger. Impossible, growled General So Hyunwoo. Humans are primitives. They barely had space travel when we conquered them. That was 50 years ago, Thexor reminded him, and we never destroyed all their scientists. We assumed we had, but clearly we were wrong. Vorthak studied the tactical data with growing unease. The human ship had appeared without warning, destroyed 3 patrol vessels and a major installation, then vanished back into space. Their weapons created controlled collapses of space-time itself. Their shields turned Imperial plasma cannons into useless light shows. How many ships like this could they have? He asked. Unknown, Thexor admitted. But based on the resources required, probably not many. Yet, the real danger is what this represents. If humans have developed this technology, other species might follow their example. That was the Empire's greatest fear. For 3,000 years, they had maintained control by convincing their subjects that resistance was hopeless. Every rebellion had been crushed so completely that no one dared try again. But now the humans had proven that the Empire could be defeated. What do you recommend? Thexor called up a strategic overview of the galaxy. Red dots marked worlds with significant human populations. Yellow indicators showed systems where other species had shown signs of unrest in recent years. Full mobilization, Thexor said. Call back every fleet from the frontier regions. Concentrate our forces in the core systems. If the humans are planning a major offensive, we need to be ready. And the slave worlds? Increased security protocols. Any sign of organized resistance gets crushed immediately. We cannot allow this rebellion to spread. General So Hyunwoo stepped forward. My lord, I request permission to personally hunt down this human ship. Give me a battle group and I will end this threat. Vorthok considered this, so Hyunwoo was aggressive and ambitious, but he had never faced opponents like these humans appeared to be. Still, someone had to respond to the challenge. Very well. Take Battle Group 7 and find this ship. But be careful, General. Do not underestimate them again. While the Valtheon Empire prepared its response, the Human Resistance Network exploded into activity. Admiral Kang Woo-bin coordinated operations from his hidden base, using the communication systems that Specialist Nam Jisoo had established. The Imperial fleets are moving, reported Captain Yoon Daiho from his position on a transport hub. They're pulling ships back from the outer territories and concentrating them in the core systems. Woo-bin studied the intelligence reports flowing in from across the galaxy. The Empire's response was predictable but dangerous. They were sacrificing territory control to mass their forces for a major confrontation. That's both good and bad news, he told his assembled commanders. The meeting was taking place through encrypted quantum communications, with resistance leaders participating from dozens of different worlds. Good because it means they're scared, added Colonel Choi Minho. Bad because when they find us, we'll face overwhelming numbers, which is why we don't let them find us, Woo-bin replied. The indomitable dawn proved that we can hit them and disappear. Now we use that advantage to maximum effect. Dr. Park Myeon joined the conference from her asteroid laboratory. The success of their first battle had energized her entire research team. They were already working on improvements and additional ships. How long before we have a second battleship operational? Woo-bin asked her. 4 months minimum, Park replied. We're producing components as fast as possible, but we need rare materials that are difficult to acquire without attracting attention. What about smaller ships? Cruisers or destroyers with the same technology? Possible. We could have 6 destroyer-class vessels ready in 2 months. They won't have the firepower of the Dawn, but they'll have the same defensive capabilities. Commander Lee Jinwoo's voice joined the conference from the indomitable Dawn. We're seeing increased Imperial patrol activity throughout the sector. They're trying to find us, but they're searching in all the wrong places. Where are you now? Hidden in the outer nebula. The gas clouds interfere with their sensors, and our stealth systems make us completely invisible here. But we can't stay hidden forever. Eventually they'll get lucky or we'll make a mistake. Woo-bin made his decision. Then we don't give them time to get lucky. Lee, I want you to hit 3 more targets in rapid succession. Keep them guessing about where you'll strike next. What targets? Woo-bin activated a star chart showing the local sector. Red markers indicated Imperial installations that were important but not heavily defended. Communications relay stations. If we can disrupt their ability to coordinate fleet movements, their numerical advantage becomes much less useful. Agreed. We can move faster than they can, so let's use that speed to stay ahead of their response. The conference continued for another hour, with resistance leaders across the galaxy coordinating their plans. On mining worlds, human workers prepared to sabotage equipment when the signal came. In factory complexes, engineers memorized the locations of critical systems that could be disabled. On transport ships, cargo handlers identified Imperial supplies that could be diverted to the resistance. But the most important development was happening among non-human species. The destruction of Supply Station Nexus 7 had shown that the Empire could be fought successfully. Other enslaved peoples were beginning to ask themselves why they accepted their fate. Captain Otaijin reported from a border world where he coordinated intelligence-gathering operations. The Zephyrian mining colonies are showing signs of organized resistance. They've been watching our communications and learning from our tactics. How many Zephyrians are we talking about? Maybe 50,000 across 3 star systems. They don't have our technology, but they have access to mining explosives and heavy equipment. Woo-bin smiled. This was exactly what they had hoped for. Humanity's rebellion was inspiring others to fight for their freedom. Open communications with them. Share our coordination protocols and tactical manuals. If they want to fight, we'll help them do it effectively. Sir, interrupted Engineer Kim Soman from his technical station. I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from the direction of the Imperial core worlds. Something big is moving. The holographic display shifted to show long-range sensor data. At the edge of detection range, massive energy signatures were gathering in formation. That's Battle Group 7, Dr. Lim Gayan identified, consulting Imperial fleet databases they had captured. 15 battleships, 40 cruisers, over 100 smaller vessels. They're heading this direction. How long before they reach our area of operations? At maximum Imperial speed, 6 days. Wubin felt a chill of concern. The indomitable Dawn was powerful, but she was still just one ship. Even with her advanced technology, she couldn't fight an entire battle group and survive. Lee, you need to complete your missions and get to safety before that fleet arrives. Understood. We're already moving toward the first target. The communications relay at Sigma 7 should be destroyed within 18 hours. After that, hit the relay stations at Beta 9 and Gamma 12, then disappear into deep space. We'll find another hiding place while they waste time searching empty systems. The plan was risky but necessary. Each successful attack would further damage Imperial communications and prove that humans could strike anywhere, anytime. More importantly, it would keep the legend of the indomitable Dawn alive in the minds of enslaved peoples across the galaxy. Over the following days, the human battleship conducted a campaign that military historians would later call the Ghost War. The indomitable Dawn would appear without warning, destroy an Imperial installation with overwhelming force, then vanish before reinforcements could arrive. Each attack was recorded and broadcast across Resistance communication networks. Humans on enslaved worlds heard the impossible. Their people were winning battles against the Empire. The psychological impact was enormous, but the Valtheon response was equally dramatic. General So Hyunwoo's battle group swept through system after system, destroying anything that might harbor human resistance. Empty worlds were bombarded from orbit. Asteroid fields were searched with overwhelming force. Civilian ships were boarded and their crews interrogated. The search was brutal and indiscriminate. So Hyunwoo didn't care about collateral damage. If innocent people died in his hunt for the human ship, that was acceptable. Fear was a weapon the Empire had used successfully for millennia. But this, the throne room of Emperor Vorthak had not seen panic in 3,000 years. Today it echoed with the frightened voices of generals and admirals who had never known defeat. The Emperor himself sat motionless on his crystal throne, reading reports that should have been impossible. Battle Group 7 is gone, reported Admiral Thexor, his voice hollow with disbelief. 15 battleships, 40 cruisers, over 100 support vessels, all destroyed or captured by 7 human ships. How? The Emperor's voice was barely a whisper. They used the same technology as before but multiplied. Every human ship could absorb our energy weapons and redirect them. Our plasma cannons became their weapons. Our missiles were turned against us. We were fighting our own fleet. Regent Kylor, the Emperor's chief administrator, stepped forward with even worse news. My lord, the rebellion is spreading. 23 star systems have declared independence in the past week. The Zephyrians, the Karathi, the Nexarians, species that have been loyal for centuries, are joining the humans. Vorthak finally looked up from his reports. His ancient eyes, which had seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations, now held something they had not contained for millennia. Doubt. Show me the strategic overview. The holographic display filled the throne room with a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas under open rebellion. Yellow regions indicated systems with suspected resistance activity. Blue areas showed territories still under firm Imperial control. There was far too much red and yellow. Far too little blue. The humans are not trying to fight us directly, Thexor explained. They strike key targets, then disappear before we can respond. Each successful attack inspires more species to rebel. We are losing control of the outer rim. Then we bring all our forces back to the core worlds, Vorthak decided. Let the outer systems rebel. We will hold what matters most and rebuild from there. My lord, Regent Kylor said carefully, the core worlds depend on resources from the outer systems. If we lose access to those supplies, then we take what we need by force. The Empire has survived for 3,000 years by being stronger than everyone else. That has not changed. But even as he spoke the words, Vorthak knew they were no longer true. Strength meant nothing if you couldn't bring it to bear on your enemies. The humans had proven that a small, clever force could defeat a large, traditional one. Worse, they had taught that lesson to half the galaxy. At that moment, alarms began, sounding throughout the palace. Emergency lights bathed the throne room in red as automated systems detected incoming threats. "Report," Vorthak commanded. A communications officer ran into the throne room, his face pale with terror. "My lord, there are ships appearing throughout the system. Dozens of them. They're not on any of our identification codes." The holographic display shifted to show local space around Nexus Prime. The Emperor's home system, defended by the largest fleet in the galaxy, was filling with unknown vessels. They appeared without warning, as if materializing from empty space. But these were not human ships. The energy signatures were different. The hull configurations were unfamiliar. These were vessels built by species the Empire had never encountered. "Who are they?" Admiral Thexer demanded. The answer came from an unexpected source. The main communication system activated, and a familiar voice filled the throne room. "This is Admiral Kang Wubin of the Free Terran Republic. Emperor Vorthak, your time is over." Vorthak stood from his throne for the first time in years. "Impossible. Our sensors show no human ships in this system. Your sensors show what we want them to show. Your technology is 3,000 years old, Emperor. Ours is 3 days old. We adapt. We innovate. We learn from every mistake. You do not." The display updated to show the true scope of the force that had invaded Imperial space. The indomitable Dawn hung in orbit above Nexus Prime, no longer hiding behind stealth systems. Around her, a fleet of human warships spread out in perfect formation. But they were not alone. Ships of a dozen different designs surrounded the human fleet. The liberated species of the galaxy had come to witness the end of the Valtheon Empire. "You ruled through fear," Wubin continued. "You convinced your subjects that resistance was hopeless. You were wrong. Every species you enslaved remembers what freedom was like. They were just waiting for someone to show them it was possible, to fight back." Emperor Vorthak activated his personal communication system, reaching out to his fleet commanders throughout the core systems. "All units, converge on Nexus Prime immediately. Destroy the invaders at any cost." But the responses that came back were not what he expected. Fleet Command Delta reports heavy resistance activity in their sector. They cannot break away. Fleet Command Gamma is under attack by Karathi rebel ships. They are requesting immediate reinforcement. Fleet Command Alpha has lost contact with 17 ships in the past hour. Suspected human raiders in the area. One by one, the reports came in. The coordinated rebellion that Admiral Wubin had planned for months was happening all at once. Every Imperial fleet was engaged with local resistance forces. None could come to defend the capital. The Emperor was alone. "Surrender, Vorthak," Wubin broadcast. "Your empire is finished, your fleets are scattered. Your subjects have remembered what it means to be free. End this now, and we will allow you to live out your remaining years in exile." "Never." Vorthak's voice carried 3,000 years of absolute authority. "I am the Emperor of the galaxy. I do not surrender to primitives and slaves. Then you will die as you lived, alone and feared by everyone around you." The Battle of Nexus Prime lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Imperial Defense Fleet, caught completely off guard by the sudden appearance of the Liberation Forces, tried to respond with traditional tactics. They formed battle lines, concentrated their fire, and attempted to overwhelm the invaders with superior numbers. It didn't work. The human ships absorbed every energy weapon fired at them and redirected the power back at their attackers. The alien vessels that had joined the Liberation Fleet used tactics learned from human advisors, striking fast and disappearing before the ponderous Imperial battleships could respond. But the real blow came from an unexpected direction. As the space battle raged, Commander Li Jinwu led a strike team directly to the surface of Nexus Prime. His target was not the Emperor's palace. It was the planetary communication array that coordinated Imperial forces across the galaxy. "All Imperial ships, this is your Emperor," Vorthak broadcast as Lee's team fought their way through the communication center. Fight to the last. Give no quarter. Accept no surrender. The transmission ended abruptly as human soldiers destroyed the array. Across the galaxy, Imperial forces lost contact with their supreme commander. Local commanders were left to make their own decisions about whether to continue fighting a war that was clearly lost. Most of them chose to surrender. Captain Bayek Jiwan led the ground assault on the Imperial Palace itself. Her forces consisted of humans, Zephyrians, Karathi, and a dozen other species that had suffered under Valtheon rule for centuries. They fought with the fury of people who had waited lifetimes for this moment. The palace guards, elite warriors who had never known defeat, found themselves facing opponents who fought with tactics they could not understand. The liberation forces used unconventional weapons, coordinated perfectly across species lines, and showed no fear of Valtheon technology. Emperor Vorthak made his final stand in the throne room, where he had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia. When the doors burst open and his enemies poured in, he still sat on his crystal throne, his ancient dignity intact even in defeat. "I am Emperor Vorthak," he said as Bayek Jiwan's soldiers surrounded him. "I have ruled this galaxy since before. Your species learned to make fire. I will not kneel to anyone." "Then stand," said Admiral Wubin as he entered the throne room. "Stand and face judgment for 3,000 years of slavery, genocide, and oppression." The trial of Emperor Vorthak lasted 3 days and was broadcast across the galaxy. Representatives from every enslaved species testified about the crimes committed against their people. The evidence was overwhelming, the verdict inevitable. But the most important moment came when Dr. Park Myon took the stand as a witness. She did not speak of weapons or battles. Instead, she talked about hope. 50 years ago, humanity faced extinction, she said. Our worlds were conquered, our people enslaved, our culture nearly destroyed. The Empire told us that resistance was impossible. They told us to accept our fate and die quietly. She paused, looking directly at the former emperor. But humans don't die quietly. We adapt. We learn. We find ways to turn our weaknesses into strengths. The Empire's greatest mistake was assuming that being conquered meant being defeated. They were wrong. The verdict was death, but it was never carried out. On the night before his scheduled execution, Emperor Vorthak died peacefully in his cell, his ancient body finally giving up after 3,000 years of life. Some said it was a mercy. Others claimed he had chosen his own time to die rather than give his enemies the satisfaction of killing him. The galaxy that emerged from the ashes of the Valtheon Empire was very different from what had come before. Instead of one supreme ruler, dozens of species formed a loose confederation based on mutual cooperation and shared defense. The human fleet, led by ships like the